A Sioux City woman has endured the unthinkable, a health journey that started with wrist discomfort. Jessica Bowman tells us about this rare case and how strength and perseverance have shined bright in the midst of her pain.
I'm good.
You good?
Yeah.
You good? I got
The smiles on their face lighten the room. It's the small things in life, or miniature, you could say. This is Philip and his wife, Teresa Prather.
So I was born with a genetic disorder called neurofibromatosis type 1, or just NF1 for short.
It affects about 1 in 3,000 people. It's a disorder that can cause tumors to form on nerves throughout a person's body.
Well, I've always had it. It's always just been really small.
About the size of a quarter.
Where was it?
On my upper right arm, close to my armpit. And most of the time they don't really change sizes, but I noticed these past few months it got really big really fast.
She had multiple doctor visits, tests, scans, and biopsy, all in a matter of months in 2025. During that time, the tumor continued to grow.
It was measured to be 18 centimeters.
Which is larger than the size of this average grapefruit, measuring 10 centimeters you see on your screen. The pain wouldn't go away. The results came in. Teresa was told it was cancer.
Well, when I was first told it was cancer, that's when it hit the hardest.
That moment in time stood still.
It destroyed me. There were days where I couldn't think straight, I couldn't sleep, I just couldn't eat.
And the man who's been right by her side.
I think the first couple of nights I just couldn't really stop thinking about losing the person I loved the most out of everything.
They tried to cope with the results, and in the midst of bad news came news that was even worse. Doctors explained why the tumor couldn't easily be removed.
It was on one of the most important nerves, a mass of tissues on the ulnar nerve. And the ulnar nerve, think of it as like a string that is all tangled up and like knotted inside. So it wasn't just going straight through. And because it was such a large portion of the nerve, that's why they couldn't do a nerve graft.
Doctors told the Prathers there was only one option.
And they saw just the size of it, and it was pressing against, major artery. That's when they determined that amputation was the best route, because otherwise they would just leave me with a non-functioning arm.
Teresa endured a lengthy multiple-hour surgery in November 2025. Doctors removed her right arm, which was amputated from the shoulder. Teresa's right-handed.
I think when I finally hit the day, I wasn't as effective as I thought I would be, because when you prepare yourself for something that's going to be bad, it's not as bad when it happens.
While Teresa processed the reality, it was also a reality her loved ones had to cope with.
There's entire nights where I just couldn't stop reacting to it.
After time in the hospital, recovery now continues at home. Teresa's learning a new way of life, doing everything with her left arm.
And a lot of times you come across challenges that are hard, but I know if I keep at it and I keep trying, eventually I'm going to overcome it, which is how I view losing my arm. It's not a setback, it's just a challenge.
A deep breath, a smile, a bit of relief as the Prathers navigate their new normal together and go back to doing the things they love the most.
I knew that if I had something that I enjoy going on still, that I would have a way to stay positive.
Painting miniature figurines and embracing a new way of life. In Sioux City, Jessica Bowman, KTIV News 4.
Now here's the most recent picture of Teresa. She is in the process of being fitted for and now awaiting her new prosthesis. Teresa says she's so thankful for the community of support that she has received through this entire journey. At last check, her cancer had not spread.